see many of my former neighbors of 3 years ago that have arrived. I don't think they came to see me. My name is Tom Reggie, by the way. I live here. And we're going to have about an hour, hour and a half of commentary and Q&A. We already have a mountain of questions that people brought with them.
Phil, you got enough to write out?
So we'll get to that in a couple of minutes. First, let's please welcome our mayor, Greg Mayorial, who's serving his second term and running for his third term. And the other candidate is Phil Good, a city councilman who has been on his first term, which is 4 years. Greg's had 2 terms for 2 years each. And they are both running for mayor for the next 2 years. Did I get that right? Yeah. Okay. We're not going to have any when did you quit beating up your wife kind of questions. That's why we asked that you put them down on a card. We're going to start with about 20 minutes that each candidate will have half of. I'd like them to take the first 5 minutes of their 10 and a little background historic, who they are, what they do, that sort of thing. And the second 5, we'd like to hear a little about their vision for Prescott for the next couple of years. Further ado, you each have a microphone, or you're sharing?
We're sharing, I guess.
Go ahead, Greg. You're the...
Okay. Absolutely. You're gonna push that button.
Yeah, see, he's gonna
This one here?
stand.
Yeah, this one. The view.
And I don't know if we're gonna get his head cut.
It'll be a brief delay. Here comes Cindy.
There, got it, great.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Sorry. Whoa. Sorry about that. Good afternoon. I want to thank Tom for the popcorn. Good job, Tom. Appreciate it. It's good to see everybody out. You know, it's been too long since we've been able to be together, and so it's great to be able to chat with everyone and shake your hand and give a hug, and so glad to see everyone's doing so well, and it's good to get out. I want to thank Tom for the opportunity. Appreciate Tom putting this together, and look forward to having a fun chat here with you all this afternoon. It's been an honor and a privilege for me to be your mayor for the last 3.5 years. I love this city. I've been here 26 years. I have my wife here, who's actually hiding back there somewhere, Sheila. We have 9 children. We have 5 biological and 4 adopted. We did lose one daughter last year to epilepsy. But you know, it's just been great to be in Prescott and to be involved in the schools and the activities, and coaching the Little League, and now we're doing girls softball, which is a lot of fun here in town. It's been a privilege to serve on the school board here locally. I did a term that started back in 2015 and was the president of the school board for a year, and so it's been fun to really influence the city and to be a part of the community and to be involved. My wife and I attend Prescott Christian Church, and we have since we came here in February of 1995, and it's a wonderful place. You all know that. We have a tremendous quality of life. We have great traditions here, like the rodeo and the lighting at Christmas down on the plaza, and those are all those special things that we want to preserve. Those are the things that we're proud of, and that we love, and that we will make sure continues forward. And it's been a privilege to lead and preserve the best. We said we're going to preserve the best, and we're going to enhance the rest. And I believe that's what we've done. When you look at the airport, have you been to the airport terminal? A few of you? Okay. Isn't that a beautiful place? Please, if you've not gone out, go out and see the terminal. Lots of places you can go without having to go through security. There's a beautiful patio outside where you can watch the planes come and go and people get on and off the planes. We have commercial air service. Just 9 months after I was elected in November of 17 and put into office, 9 months later, we had large commercial 50-seat jets flying to Denver and LA. Who's flown to Denver or LA on our United? Yes, several of you. What a great convenience, right? To drive 15, 20 minutes, free parking, go through an easy security process, and you're on a plane. And we are so proud of our airport and our commercial air service. And then I look at Hilton Garden Inn as another great project here in the city of Prescott. We had some land there next to the Granite Creek Park, and we were able to work with a hotelier to get them in there. And that place was a mess before. I don't know if you'd noticed, but there were a lot of vagrants and issues. The police were in there all the time, having to do a lot of work to police that area. But today we have a beautiful 100-room Hilton Garden Inn. We have the train trestle, which is showcased with that hotel. It's a great venue that people will use for different social events. And then in addition to that, the Sam Hill Warehouse, which many of you may not have known was even there. It was hidden, a hidden gem that now we'll use as the conference center for the Hilton Garden Inn. And then we have a splash pad and a playground and some more grass areas for families and people to enjoy there right next to the Hilton Garden Inn. So we're very proud of that project and how that turned out and cleaned that area up. And we have more plans in store around the city like the Hilton Garden Inn. And then finally, I want to talk about the Granite Creek Corridor. This is a corridor that's been neglected and forgotten for years, but it's a tremendous community asset, a natural asset that runs near downtown, and it's a great opportunity for people to move about the city on bikes and pedestrian traffic to get from one place to another, to get to different businesses. And we think that by cleaning that area up, again, it's going to open up more doors for the local economy downtown to thrive along that very important corridor in downtown. So those are some of the things that we've been up to in the last 3 years. I also want to talk about Proposition 443. This was very important. This happened back in 2017. We have the new proposition, that's the 3/4 cent sales tax, that was adopted to then pay down the huge debt that we had, the unfunded liability for our police and firefighters. And it's very important, in my view, that we take care of our first responders. They are our first line of defense. We need these people. Very important. We all know in that time of need, we want them there. And so I fully supported Proposition 443. We had an $86 million unfunded liability at that time. In 3.5 years, because of that tax, and thank you for your support of Proposition 443, because of that 3/4 cent sales tax, our liability went from 86 million to now $43 million. It's now at half. And so we look forward to twilighting that tax like we had promised from the very beginning. That tax will twilight in 10 years, but I believe that we will get the unfunded liability into a place where we can get rid of that tax before the 10 years. And that's my hope, and that's why we send all that money from the tax directly to that unfunded liability. In terms of, I'm rambling on here, Tom, you got a timer? Couple of minutes? Couple quick things in terms of the future. I have more I'd like to do at the airport. We need to lengthen our runway. It's 7,600 feet long. We need to go to 11,000 feet. The reason is twofold. Number one is safety. You see the big planes that fly every summer because of the fires. We typically have fires in our region or even the greater northern Arizona, and we have a U.S. Forest Service fire station there with those large tankers that they fuel up and get the slurry there at our airport. So it's important we lengthen that runway to accommodate those large air tankers to fight the fires. Secondly, we need it for commercial air service. At times we can't fly in the summer with a large plane because of the altitude density. We can't take off as well in the summer. Some of you Air Force veterans are shaking your head, yes. We need that longer runway so we can accommodate more flights, more destinations for commercial air service. We're in the middle of an escrow on our city hall. We're moving to a brand new city hall. We're moving out of a 60-year-old building that's overwhelming us with maintenance costs. We're going to a beautiful new building. We got a great deal on it. It's half the amount it would cost to build it brand new. It's going to be a great showcase for our city. You will be very proud of it. We need to finalize that. We need to sell the property where the old city hall is now so that we can leverage that for future economic growth in the downtown area. I see a hotel or something beautiful there on the corner where City Hall is that will generate sales tax revenue. We need to finish the planning that we have on the North Prescott area plan and the downtown area. We are working on making sure we have infrastructure to move people around and to take care of our future needs as we move forward 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now. So we're working on a master plan in the North Prescott area as well as the downtown. And finally, we need to finish the Arizona Eco Development Annexation. This is a very big deal. We have to preserve the Point of Rocks and the open space around the Point of Rocks. It's very important that we do that. It will be a regional, statewide actually asset to have that regional park with the Point of Rocks. We will get land around the airport, which will be tremendous for future growth and protecting our airport. And so that Arizona Eco Development Annexation is coming up next month, but it's going to take a number of months to complete the whole deal, and I look forward to doing that. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. And Cindy, and I want to thank Las Fuentes for allowing this forum to be conducted. It's great to see so many people that have come out to pay attention to the city services and this mayoral race. First, I want to give you a little background. I was born and raised in Sacramento. I didn't have a choice. But it was a great place to grow up. My family is very associated with the military service to our country. My father, his brothers, and I have another uncle that all served in World War II. I have two brothers that are Air Force veterans. I graduated from high school in Sacramento and shortly thereafter enlisted in the United States Army to serve in Vietnam. So I'm a combat infantry veteran with a storied 101st Airborne Division, served a full combat tour there, and then as I was transferred after my combat tour, I served with the 4th Infantry Division in Fort Carson, Colorado as well. So 6 years of service to our country, and received my honorable discharge from the Army in 1977. I came back to Sacramento, finished my college degree at Sacramento State University with honors in biological sciences, chemistry, and psychology, and then embarked on about a 30-year career in medical devices, supplies, healthcare in general. So during that time, I lived all over the western United States. I lived in Phoenix for a while in 1980. I do have family in the state that go back decades. My brother and sister-in-law live down in Tucson. They're both U of A graduates. No comment. And I've been trying to convince their athletic director to pay for me to come down and watch their football games because they've never lost when I've been in attendance. But for some reason, they haven't been able to pass the hat yet. My cousin, who's in the Football Hall of Fame at NAU, was a guard for the Houston Oilers. So my cousin was up in Flagstaff, out in that area, and then is now in Waddell. So a lot of experience with Arizona as a state, and visited many times. After I completed my professional career, and during that time I lived in not only Phoenix, but Denver, Houston, Dallas, and outside of Centennial in Denver. So that allowed me to really have a broad experience in different communities throughout the West. I worked with every major hospital system from Illinois to Hawaii to Alaska. So having a very broad experience in different communities, I think, has been very educational and helpful for me as a city councilman and as your next mayor, being able to keep an eye on how well we grow, how we plan our growth, and how we can accommodate some of this unchecked growth. When I won't say we, my lovely wife Toby visited Prescott decades ago, and as we were contemplating our retirement and eventual escape from California, we looked at a number of different communities, but in 2008, Toby said, we really ought to consider Prescott. And I had gone up and down from Flagstaff to Tucson in different visits and while I lived here, but never made the trip to Prescott. I think you don't come here accidentally. Either you made a really bad wrong turn, or you are coming here for specific reasons. And when I first visited in 2008, like I said, just like my wife, I think I fell in love at first sight. It had everything that I was looking for: low taxes, conservative politics, a wonderful small town atmosphere. The downtown plaza area was just so remarkable in its Western heritage and its culture and its history. And well, I just knew immediately this is where we're going to spend the rest of our lives. So as I was planning my retirement, I was thinking that I might be able to do the extensive travel that I had always done working with these different hospital systems and companies. But as I monitored the declining service of Great Lakes Airlines, I realized I couldn't rely on them at all. So we did get here in late 2014 and leased a small little house over off of Coronado until we found our home up in the Southview neighborhood, and we've lived there since 2015 as well. So during that time, my primary interest was mainly veterans service organizations. I've been a 30-year member of the American Legion. I served as the judge advocate in a couple of different positions with our local Post 6, Ernest A. Love. I've also been an extensive member of the VFW post here, Bucky O'Neill 541. I've been the senior vice commander there, also a judge advocate. And I was introduced to Betty Bargaud, who's one of our local historians, who was trying desperately to get the All Veterans Memorial plaque on the downtown courthouse plaza updated, because there were so many veterans who died in service to our country that were Yavapai residents that were missing on that plaque. So I helped launch a campaign to raise the funds and update that plaque and rededicate it in 2016. I was very proud to do that also. Harry Oberg, I met and then volunteered to work on his campaign in 2015. I helped him get elected. I was elected to the Central Yavapai Hospital District Board of Directors in 2016, and then of course ran for City Council in 2017 and was elected basically on my principles of low taxes, limited government, strong public safety, police and fire, which I think are so incredibly important for our community, traditional values, and then as far as issues, make sure that we have continued open, transparent government, that we listen to the community at large, we welcome their input, and we make sure that they have a trust in our government, because they're listened to and respected. As I mentioned, I think our growth is way too rapid, unchecked, and it needs to be managed much more effectively. Water resource management also, I think, is contributing to that because of the change in our water policy. I'd like to reverse that and bring it back to where it was so that we can manage that growth in a more effective manner. Protecting our airport is also something I agree with the mayor on. However, we have to make sure it isn't encircled and encroached upon by this rapid development of single-family residences that are really need to maintain a buffer around the airport so it continue to be an economic driver for our community in the future. And also continuing to support our veterans and make sure that we have the ability to support this wonderful veterans community. And as I borrowed a saying from Senator Borelli, don't forget, hire a vet. So that's kind of my background and what I'm running on and what my issues are. So thank you, Tom.
Okay, that's the easy part. Now we'll do Q&A, and I'll probably get through 1/4 of all these, but I really appreciate the interest rendered. I'm going to start with a local one, local here. Both candidates. Can we remove the 2.75% renters tax on retirement communities, or at least reduce it to 1.5? Go ahead, Greg. Okay, Phil?
Well, I can say that the only discretionary taxes that we have in the city have been primarily our streets tax, which has been ongoing since, I believe, 1995 and a couple of different variations. Our PSPRS 443 tax, which I agree, as long as we're diligent about continuing to make our level payments to that system, then we can retire that. As far as the additional taxes that are designed for residents here, I think they're more of a function of county and state taxes that I don't think we have as a city much discretionary control over.
Thank you, Phil. Well, we don't like taxes. Let's start there, right? That's why when we did the Prop 443, we made sure there was a deadline, and it was going to go away. I appreciated that, about how that was crafted with Proposition 443. Phil's right, we have a 1% streets tax, essentially. Years ago, when that was created, there was an agreement that some of that would go to open space. And there's been debate and differences about how much should go to open space, how much was supposed to go to streets. If you're not familiar, I'm not going to bore you with all those details. I'll just say that I would be in favor with future open space purchases to use some of that streets money to pay for that open space. I think that's the right thing to do. I can't go back and rewrite history. I know some people are upset about how that was used, but I'd be willing to look at using some of that streets money for our open space purchases. The rental tax, I concur with Phil in terms of the administration of that tax is out of our hands. Thanks.
Stay there, Greg. You get
Okay.
the next one.
Okay.
Or you'll both get the next one.
Okay.
Of the council candidates, who would you like to see in your council chamber when you take office?
Yeah, good question. There's 6 candidates, from what I understand, running for 3 open seats. Phil is vacating his seat, as you know, and then Steve Blair, as well as Mayor Pro Tem Scholl, who's actually here today. And so, you know, I would look for people who are like-minded, want people who are very reasonable, conservative, hardworking, open-minded, willing to listen to ideas, listen to the public. You know, the way I go about my problem solving, if you will. My philosophy is you listen, then you study it, and then you act. It's really simple. And I would be looking for people that would be willing to do something very similar, to sit down at the table, listen to the public, understand the issues, study it, and then act. And I think there's some great candidates in there, and I look forward to seeing who's going to come out on top.
Well, what I will say is that I think it's up to you, the voters, to decide who the next candidates are going to be. One of the things that I disagreed with Greg and the rest of the council was the fact that we appointed a replacement for Billy Orr's seat for 33 months until the end of her term. I very much disagreed with that. I think there was more than enough time for candidates to come forward and declare their candidacy, run for a short-term period of time in that term, and have the local residents decide who they wanted to represent them. So I think as far as the reference to me, we have in this state a requirement that you have to resign to run. If you're going to run for another seat, you can't hold on to your current seat. You have to resign. So in order for me to run for mayor, I had to be willing to vacate my council seat. But since I was in the last year of my term, I'm allowed to complete my term, subject to the voters' decision here. So I think it's up to all of you to listen to the candidates for council and decide who has the best vision to work with the mayor and with the community to achieve the goals that are important to you. So,
Stay there, Phil.
sure.
I don't know who this goes to, so you both get it. Why is the downtown scramble at Gurley and Montezuma still in place? Wasn't it supposed to be temporary?
Originally it was temporary. I thought that considering some of the congestion, the gridlock that was going on because of the high volume of traffic in that area, that it was worth studying the concept of a all-cross or a scramble type of an intersection. I know it has worked in other communities. It's been tried in Arizona and a couple of different places. Most of the time it hasn't worked. And I concluded after that experimental term that it wasn't working here either. So I recommended and voted that it be withdrawn and reversed back to the previous arrangement that we had. We never did get the timing right. And if anybody goes down there today, they'll see that not only are the pedestrians violating the walk sign, people don't want to wait 23 seconds. It's making matters worse. We're already getting gridlock in Goodwin and Montezuma. We're getting gridlock in Cortez and Gurley, and we haven't even approached the number of vehicles we'll see during the course of the summer. So I said it was worthy of study, but it was a failure. So I would remove it if I were the mayor, and recommend to the council that it's something that just isn't appropriate here.
It's a good segue. The scramble there at the downtown intersection, we looked at this, and there's a lot of pedestrians downtown. I've got a 15-year-old that's getting ready to drive, and it concerns me. I've told her numerous times, Trish, when you're downtown, you have to look and look and look for people who are walking around. It scares me to think about her down there walking with all the pedestrians. One of the reasons I liked this idea, and Phil's right, the pedestrians don't always follow the rules. It's a new concept. People are cutting across at times they shouldn't. The reason I liked it is because the only time pedestrians are moving, cars are all stopped. So cars have to stop all directions, and then folks move across and move about. And so that's what I liked about it. We have a lot of education that's happening. I see people who are learning how to do this better, and I think I support it because it's safer for pedestrians moving about because cars are stopped at that time when they're moving.
Hang on, Greg, you're gonna get, we do the same thing this time. Should Prescott be supplying water outside the city limits? Why or why not?
Yeah, good question. You know, this is a very important topic here in our city. So let's start by first saying that this is not a new concept. We've been supplying water outside of the city for decades. I live up Copper Basin Road, and Mountain Club is right near my neighborhood where I live. Mountain Club is in the county, but it has city water, and in some cases city sewer, in some cases not. Hokagon out Williamson Valley Road, same kind of thing. They have city water, but they don't have sewer, which is a real problem. Around Taylor Hicks, we have city water, but we have septic systems as well up there. And so in the past, they were offering water to unincorporated areas in the city, but not requiring a sewer hookup. This is a real problem. The reason it's a problem is because you don't get the recharge. So you're giving people water, they're using a septic system, and that wastewater, that black water, is not returned to our aquifer. And so in the future, as we have moved forward under my leadership, anytime that we have offered water outside of the city, we require a sewer hookup. I think it's a good program and a good policy, and here's why. We are the best. This will sound a little bit egotistical. The city of Prescott is the best at managing water. And so we know that development and growth is going to happen. We live in a free country. We live in a desirable place. People are going to come. You can build a wall and they'll build outside the wall. And so in my view, we want to offer city water and sewer in those cases because they have to comply with our stringent conservation water code in the city of Prescott. They have to pay a 30% upcharge if they're outside of the city, which helps subsidize our water bills inside the city of Prescott. And then 90% of the water in a new build today, in a new home, about 90% is returned in black water recharge to our aquifer. I've been to our wastewater treatment plant. I've seen this process. It's amazing how it works, but it's important to think about the alternative. If we don't supply water in unincorporated, then you have an exempt well in the county that's unmonitored, and you have a septic system, and that black water in a septic system doesn't make it back to the aquifer. So if we're going to maintain our aquifer for decades to come, it's important that the city of Prescott be able to serve water outside of the city of Prescott.
Well, in general terms, I disagree with that. We are assured water supplier at this Prescott AMA. That gives us the authority to very diligently look at how we supply water to either current infill development or developments outside city limits. By providing water outside city limits, we create the opportunity for a vast amount of unregulated growth. And we are seeing that on a daily basis. The claim that we're growing by 1 or 2% is a way of utilizing statistics to support a point of view. We are growing much faster than that. And as a assured water supplier, I believe that if we had a policy that was more similar to the policy we had before we changed it 2 years ago, so that we could potentially accommodate some of the smaller nearby or infill developments that do make some sense, where we could recover their wastewater recharge and put that into the treatment facility and recharge the aquifer. Those are the kinds of things we were doing before we changed this policy. When we said we would, I won't say we, I saw the majority of the council decided that we could deliver water outside city limits with an intergovernmental agreement. The original intention was just to help support Chino Valley and their ability to attract some commercial development in their main downtown core area. However, it's kind of morphed beyond that. We now see organizations or developments like Stringfield Ranch that has decided to create a water improvement district, which under state law is considered a sub-governmental agency, and then say we now can contract with the city to get city water with just a majority vote, rather than having to go through the required annexation requirements where we can require a developer to really be able to demonstrate to the city that they are worthy of producing benefits for the city by being able to have water delivery. So we had a very substantial policy that was working great. I agree with the mayor that we are known throughout the state as one of the most conservative and well-managed water delivery cities, and we need to maintain that. So we're starting to see some real disturbing delivery agreements that I think are going to accelerate the growth that it's almost impossible to deal with after the fact. We have to plan for it originally, we have to do good planning, we have to have good traffic management, and if we manage that well, we can maintain our small town community, our nature, our slower pace, and not have to deal with the impossible task of trying to fix this after the fact. Thank you.
Hang on, Julie, starting again. What were the 3 worst decisions made by the city council this past year, and how did you vote?
Well, first of all, I think the decision to appoint a new city council member for 33 months to an expired term of Councilwoman Billy Orr's term was just a slap in the face to our voters. We do have a provision in the city charter that allows the option of either appointing for the term or creating a short-term appointment until the next election, and I voted against that long-term appointment. It's up to the voters to decide who they want to represent them. And there was more than enough time for the candidates to declare their candidacy, run for election, and convince you that they were the best representative. In fact, we have, I think, 3 different candidates on this race that had to declare at the same time after they were trying to be appointed. So I think they've done a pretty good job of getting their issues out, and we'll have a chance to vote on who wants to represent us. So I think that was a poor decision. I voted against it. I already mentioned to you about water outside city limits. I think that was also a poor decision, and we're even dealing with some consequences that we didn't even anticipate, such as Stringfield Ranch and those other areas. I believe that's going to accelerate our growth and have such a negative impact on congestion, traffic, etc. One of the biggest things I tried to do when we first got on council is we have a council policy that says if a council member wants to bring an item on the agenda, if the mayor doesn't agree with it, then the council member has to find another council member to support that item before it can even be agendized. As far as I'm concerned, that's a slap in the face of representative government. If you elect a council member because you agree with their principles and what they want to do, they should have the chance to bring those items forward for debate and decision by the council, and not have to worry about violating open meeting law if they decide to pick the wrong council person to support them and bring these items on council. Tried to get that changed. I didn't get support of the mayor or the majority of the council, and it's still in effect today. So I would take that as traffic scramble. Thanks.
Give it to
There you go.
Right.
Thanks, Phil.
Well, let me just kind of rebut what Phil brought up as his perceived worst decisions the council's made. In terms of the new council member, we followed the charter. It was a majority vote by the council, and we went forward with appointing someone to a 33-month term. Well, you ask, well, that doesn't make sense because you should bring it back to the voter. I understand that. The reason that I supported what we did is because what you would have in this election is council members who would have to choose between running for a 4-year or a 2-year term. So you would do all the work, and trust me, we know how much work this is, standing up here, having fun with you all and raising money and doing all the things that you have to do to get elected. It's a lot of work. I get to do that every 2 years. Council people do that every 4 years. In this case, you would have council people choosing, hey, do I want to spend all this money and time and effort, yada, 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 for a 4-year reward or a 2-year? So my concern was the quality of candidates that would be running for a 2-year term. I think what we're missing here is Mr. Clark Tenney, who was appointed, is an amazing young gentleman from the school district who well represents Mayor Pro Tem Billy Orr and what she had in terms of values and beliefs. And that was, for me, very important, to honor the will of the voter by finding someone who emulated who Billy Orr was, who was elected. So Phil's brought up Stringfield Ranch, which is out at the end of Pioneer Parkway, if you're not familiar, off of Williamson Valley Road. And I'd like to bring a little bit more color to that. We had a deal with the developer that we would annex. We would annex with 260 units. There would be private streets. We would have a large parking area with a trailhead. We would complete the Circle Trail with this developer. And the list went on about all of the benefits that we all would receive from this annexation. Plus, we would have our water, of course, because we know we have the most stringent conservation code probably in Arizona. So when we got to the pre-annexation agreement, then it was voted 5-2 in favor. Well, you have to have a supermajority because of Prop 400. Well, the developer knew right away, I don't have a supermajority because I just had a vote of 5-2. So he had to back up and realize I can't annex with only 5 votes. So we lost the 260 units. We lost control over that development. We lost what would be private streets and completing the Circle Trail and the trailhead and the parking lot, and the list goes on. What we received in the county was 340 units. So it went up by 80 units. So, now, you talk about unchecked growth. Yeah, 80 more units in Stringfield Ranch because we didn't annex. And then we had to come in and do an IGA because, again, I believe the best way for development to move forward with water to preserve our aquifer, which is so important, is to use city water sewer and get that recharge, have them comply with our conservation code out there in Stringfield Ranch. So that's my perspective on Stringfield Ranch. I think we lost, and I think 80 more units as a result of not annexing. In terms of growth, Phil mentioned growth. Just go to my website, votemayor.com. We've seen less than 1% growth from the U.S. Census Bureau numbers. It's not cherry-picked. It's not phony numbers. It's from the U.S. Census Bureau. 2005, when Proposition 400 was implemented, that did slow growth because there were more stringent public policy measures in place. To 2019, you'll see that we grew slower than the United States during 2005 to 2019. Now, I don't like growth. I don't like traffic that, I don't like sitting in traffic. I get it. But it's not unchecked growth. We may be feeling growth from other local municipalities like Prescott Valley that is growing at about 2.5% to 3%. So go to my website, votemayor.com. You can see under growth the numbers from 2005 to 2019.
Thanks, Greg. Greg, take the next one, too.
Okay, yeah.
Nobody said it was going to be easy.
It's an hour and a half of this fun, huh?
This is not me talking. Prescott development used to roll with the land. Now it appears to be scorched earth approach. with mass grading and eradication of everything living thing. There's another commentary. Doesn't that turn your stomach? But you don't have to answer that part.
Let's see. So yeah, the change in how development happens, Tom, is what you're talking about. So I think you're talking about different topographic, geographic areas. When you look at Old Prescott, so to speak, down in this area, you have lots of changes in elevation. It's a very different type of topography that you're dealing with here in kind of the general downtown Prescott area. As you move north, what we call the grasslands, there's ranch land up there, Deepwell Ranch, you're probably very familiar with, much flatter out there, more open. And so, yes, they do more mass grading up there in that area because it makes sense. I think the thing that we have to remember here is we need affordable housing. We like people who are working the restaurants and working at the bar and our fire and police and our teachers. These are people that we need here to help serve our community, and they're very important. And we need places where we can have a higher density of housing, which brings the cost of housing down. Whole nother thing going on right now. I won't get into the cost of housing, but we've got to find places in North Prescott where we can do very high density housing so that we can bring the cost down, so that we don't have folks driving all the way in from North Chino Valley or wherever for some of these service jobs. It's very important that we take care of our police, fire, teachers, and others that need more affordable housing. I think that comes in these developments where you're out in these flatter areas and can get the higher density.
Well, I agree that having lower cost housing for many of the service jobs that we kind of rely on here in Prescott. Almost 90% of all of our revenue is generated from sales tax. That was one of the problems with Stringfield Ranch. It was so far out of our general plan growth area. It was purely residential development. There was no suggestion or even opportunity for any nearby commercial development that would help pay for the services that we would have to extend to that development, police, fire, etc. So more rooftops does not generate a long-term revenue stream that pays for our services. When you look at the vast amount of high-density development in Deepwell Ranch, Walden Farms, even some of the additional ones that are being proposed for Arizona Eco, we have to make sure that those developments do generate the commercial and retail that generate the sales tax that we rely on. We have very, very limited. Less than 1% of our city revenue comes from property tax. Who develops and benefits from the growth of those areas? The county. The county gets the property tax, and we have to provide the services without the commercial sales tax to generate it. So I'm much more of a proponent of infill development. One of the things I was quite proud of is the local community cleanups that we did in the Dexter neighborhoods and the other kind of lower income neighborhoods that have dramatically improved. And now we're starting to see small apartment unit developments. We've got one on Hillside, another one on 2nd Street, Navajo, one out on behind True Value Hardware. I think it's on Sunset. So these 14, 15, 16 unit apartment buildings are the ones that really do provide the lower cost housing without having to extend additional services. Those are already in the city. We already provide police and fire protection, so we don't have to extend our growth and the impact of it more and more in the North Prescott area. So that's one of the unique and great aspects of our community is the hills and the valleys and the other sections of the city that make it so great. But one of the things I always comment on was when that first development went into Deepwell Ranch. It was supposed to be antelope crossings. Well, they realized pretty quickly there ain't gonna be any antelope crossing. So now they changed it to Saddlewood and Westwood, and it continues to grow at such a rapid pace that we're all seeing the impact of it. Thanks.
Thanks, Phil. You take the next one again. What preparations does Prescott leadership need to design to protect its citizens from an influx of illegal immigrants and the assault that creates on the city's infrastructure, schools, water, housing, police, etc.?
Well, that's a pretty provocative question. No
Yeah,
question.
thought so.
However, I think everybody who's paying attention realizes that we have a very significant crisis at our southern border, to the extent that Governor Ducey has declared a state of emergency, have activated the Arizona National Guard. We've got 250 troops that are being deployed down there to try to deal with this ongoing unchecked swarm of illegal, undocumented people crossing the border, including people that we know are very dangerous potential security risks. So how does that impact us? At the moment, not much, but we have to realize what the realities are. Anybody who thinks that we're not going to have some impact eventually is pretty darn naive. You look at Gila County, or Gila River, the small community that's just north of the border area. They have a population of 1,700, and they had a bus pull up, and a couple of buses, and hundreds of illegals were just left out in their downtown area with no support from the federal government to try to deal with them. So we'll see more and more of this as it moves north from the border area. So my recommendation, and I've discussed this with our interim police chief and also our Yavapai County Sheriff's Office, we need to have a plan. We need to coordinate with our local law enforcement to say, what if we have a significant influx of undocumented, and how are we going to deal with it? So it's important, again, that we have a plan in advance and not try to deal with it after the fact. That it could have way too much damage to our community.
Well, this is a good question. It's very relevant, and it's important for us to make sure we're on top of this issue. So this week, I've met with Sheriff Rhodes, Dave Rhodes, as well as our interim chief, Amy Bonney. And we had a conversation about what we can do to make sure we are what I'll call a hard target. This is really a federal issue. It's the federal government and the Border Patrol. They're the ones that are monitoring the border and taking care of the situation. We don't have authority in terms of arresting these people and doing anything with them. But Phil's right. Down in Gila Bend, these folks who are seeking asylum were dropped off a few weeks ago. And so we need to be ready and prepared, in my view, to be a hard target. Because we don't have the resources from a humanitarian perspective to take care of these people properly. And so what I'm going to do here in the month of May, you will see on our council agenda, we will have a resolution. And that resolution will address two things, which we will send to Border Patrol. Number one, we do not have the resources available here locally to take care of these kinds of people in Prescott, Arizona. And so please do not send any buses up this way from Border Patrol. Number two, it's a federal issue. They're the ones who have the authority to take care of these people, and so we will remind the federal government that it's their issue to take care of. We will be in support, but we don't have the authority. So that will come to our council agenda in the month of May, and we will have council approve a resolution that I will send down to Border Patrol to make sure they know that we don't have the resources to take care of these people. And secondly, I'll work with our other local municipalities so that they will do hopefully the same kind of thing, so that we are unified as a region up here with one voice to Border Patrol, that we don't have the resources to take care of these people from a humanitarian perspective.
Thanks, guys. How are you holding up?
I'm doing great. A candy bar would be awesome right now.
Anybody have a candy bar?
Mr. Goodbar.
Isn't there some Tootsie Rolls up front, little ones?
I'm not in charge of
I'm
Tootsie
I'm
Roll.
fine, Tom, I'm fine.
Well, there's one.
He's got it.
Well, shall we continue?
Go ahead, yes.
Okay. I served my country and thought you respected and honored the veterans in the community. I want to know why the Veterans Initiative Commission was canceled.
Yeah, very good. So, Mayor's Commission on Veterans Initiative was started back in 2018 when I started with being the mayor there. And Patrick Kirkendall came to me, a good friend of mine, and said, Greg, let's start this commission. I said, okay. So Patrick took the helm at that time. We had a handful of people on this commission to see if there was anything we could do in the community to coordinate efforts with all the veterans groups that we have in town. There's lots of wonderful resources for veterans in our city. We are the most patriotic city, and I know that because I see all of the different wonderful veterans groups that take care of our veterans. And so they studied that for a while, and Patrick came to me and said, you know, all this is going well in the city with our different veterans groups. We don't think there's a need for the commission to continue anymore. We can do this without having the formality of the commission, because honestly, to have staff and everybody come around a commission is a lot of work to do this and to be in front of the public. And so I felt like, based on Patrick's recommendation, that there was no need to tie up staff anymore moving forward, because we have some wonderful veterans groups in the city that are doing a wonderful job, and then they don't need government to get in the way.
Well, as the only veteran on the council, I was very, very supportive of this commission. I was the council liaison to that commission, and we were moving forward with a number of very valuable programs to help coordinate many of the veteran services that are provided by a variety of different organizations, whether it's our veteran service organizations, VFW, American Legion, Disabled American Veterans, Vietnam Veterans of America, etc., or my support in forming the first Veterans Court in the county with Judge, I forget the new judge that's taken over, but it was quite substantial and a terrific program. However, I was not even informed of Mayor's decision to dissolve this organization. I had to find out from one of the members that he had decided to dissolve it without even the courtesy of a notification. I talked to Patrick Kirkendall. We agree that the commission was doing some great things, and I have talked to him extensively, and he told me that he was disappointed with the cancellation. And then to find out almost the same time, the mayor decided to create a new commission called the Commission on Well-Being that met a few times, but after Councilwoman Billy Orr resigned, then that program dissolved as well. So I would recreate a Veterans Initiative Commission if you see fit to elect me as your mayor, so that we can continue to support arguably the highest percentage of veterans of any community in the United States outside of towns around military bases. Thanks.
Okay, I have a couple zingers here, and most of them have your name on them, Greg, because you're the mayor.
Perfect.
So I'm going to give you a composite of the zingers. It appears you have a constant conflict of interest and have to recuse yourself from important council votes with real estate development. Now the rodeo, and there's another one about you going to work for the rodeo. How can you lead Prescott when you so frequently have to leave the room?
Very good. We're gonna keep this above the belt, you said,
Yeah,
right?
well,
Okay.
I told you I'd
Okay.
try. But I
Okay.
have 4 of them here that say
Oh,
the
yeah,
same thing.
good. Interesting. All right. Well, it's good. I appreciate the opportunity. So number one, yes, as of this week, I am helping the rodeo as the business development manager. Very excited about this. This is a great community asset in our city, and I look forward to raising money to dump into the rodeo so we can improve this facility and use it year-round as a community asset to really generate more in terms of dollars around the rodeo with more events, more opportunities for you all to participate in concerts and car shows and all kinds of fun stuff in a 5,000-seat venue that rarely gets used year-round. Never mind the fact that my wife said I need to get a job. She was tired of supporting me. So I think I have a right to work at some sort of job here in the city. I think we'd all agree that I should be afforded the opportunity to earn a living here in the city of Prescott. I shouldn't be penalized because I'm the mayor. I am working for the Prescott Frontier Days Rodeo Committee. The city owns the property, but to be clear, the Prescott Frontier Days Committee leases the property on a long-term lease, and I work for that rodeo committee. So I don't have a conflict unless you're looking at the lease or unless you're looking at bed tax money that might go to the rodeo. Those would be a couple instances where I might have to step out. In terms of the development, yes, my wife's a realtor in town. She's been a realtor for almost 20 years, 15, 20 years in town. So I think she's afforded the right to have a job and sell real estate here in the city of Prescott. She's done that a long, long time. She has a client that every once in a while, there's an issue that comes to the council and I recuse. I wouldn't say it's a lot, Tom, but every once in a while, I do step out. It's the right thing to do. It's what the city attorney tells me I need to do. It's a small town. This is gonna happen in a small town. Whether it be you wanna criticize my job that I have to earn a living, or whether it be that my wife's a realtor and has a client that has something come up, I just wanna make sure that I never have a conflict at the dais. I wanna make sure that I'm not voting on something that would affect my wife's future real estate dealings. And so I step out on those. It's a small town, Tom, and so sometimes it does happen. And gotta bring home the bacon at some point.
I thought you might like to have an opportunity to respond to that.
Thank you, Tom. I'll just keep standing here. I guess you got some more.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
We'll do a couple more, then we'll wrap it up.
Okay.
Do you see Prescott considering a construction moratorium in the next 5 years? Yay, nay, and
Yeah, okay, good question. So let's start here. In Arizona, how much private property is available to develop in the whole state? As a percentage, is it 50%?
15.
It's around 16, 17%, Tom.
Call me a liar.
It's a very low number, about 18%. That's private property because there's so much government-owned property in our state. So you start there. People want open space, and sometimes I'd say, hey, look, I want open space too. But we also have over 1 million acres of Forest Service. You can just drive a few miles and you're in open space. So start there with 18% private property. Then when you look at Prescott, we've studied this and we've done a water study to ensure that we have water available for generations to come. And Herb Dishlip did the study. It's on our website, or I'd be happy to get you Herb Dishlip's study. But his job was to look at how far can Prescott expand? How big can we really get over time, 50 years, 60 years, 80 years from now? And do we have the water to supply that? Well, Prescott really can only grow north, right? Because you have Forest Service all around the south and the west side of town. And so if we grow north up to a boundary there where you hit the ranches in Chino Valley, we can only get to about 80 or 90,000 people total. We can only get 80 to 90,000 ever in Prescott because of the limits of the private property available to us. So really, Phil talks about unchecked growth, and I don't understand that because, again, we grow less than 1% annually. You can look at it on my website, votemayor.com. Furthermore, in terms of a moratorium, Tom, is your question, I would say in the past we've had them because we had a perceived shortage of water. But when I came in 2017, I commissioned Gary Woodard, and again, I have this study on my website. Gary Woodard did a study on our water portfolio. And just to make sure everybody understands, the Arizona Department of Water Resources tells us how much water we can use annually. The number is 16,500 acre feet. We can use 16,500 acre feet. The state tells us that that's what we can use. Right now we use 7,000 acre feet of water. So when you do the math, and you know we're about 44,000 people, we might double in time. We might use 14,000 acre feet of water in the future, but probably not, because technology is improving and we're getting more water efficiencies. And you can see that again on my website, where our water usage has gone down about 2% annually, even though we grow about 1% annually every year.
Phil?
Well, first of all, I've never taken a dollar in contributions from developers. I haven't in the past, I haven't in the present, and I won't in the future. So I don't have any conflict of interest, whether it's actual or perceived. I have no intention of supporting a moratorium on growth. Our Constitution is based upon life, liberty, and property, even though our founding fathers decided that the fundamental beliefs of protection of private property could be described a little more pleasantly by saying life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We have an obligation to support the constitutional allowance of private property to be utilized, maintained, sold, but we do have the ability to manage how that is going to be developed in the best interest of the community. Just because the Arizona Department of Water Resources says that we have the authority on paper to be able to pump 16,000 acre feet of water doesn't mean that we should. As an assured water supplier, we should be taking the initiative to work with our neighbors, whether it's Chino Valley, Prescott Valley, the county, to put together an agreement on how best to manage this water for the future of our communities without degrading the aquifer, without degrading the Verde River. We will have a study that finally will come up with some analysis, because we're still in a legal battle with the Salt River Project to make sure that we don't degrade the Verde River. So we have to do a very diligent and well thought out, well planned policy of how we're going to support a moderate, sustainable amount of growth without overburdening our future. So no, I wouldn't support a moratorium.
Okay, I can go on for another hour, but usually the mind can absorb what the butt can endure. So I'm going to ask each of our candidates to take a 5-minute summary, and then we'll thank them graciously. Then you can attack them one-on-one before they get out of the room. Go ahead, Phil.
Well, I mentioned before some of the issues that are important to me in this campaign. I think it's critically important that we do a better job of having open and transparent government in our council, that we encourage public input, that we listen to the public at large. I'd like to see a resurgence of the call to the public, so that the public can come in and make their concerns known to the council. We've stopped that. I would eliminate the green, yellow, and red lights on the council dais for the public to come in. If we have, one of the things I learned in my long management career is some of the most valuable ideas come from the most unlikely sources. And if we cut ourselves off from the public, and their contributions and their ideas, we cut ourselves off from potentially the best ideas that can benefit the community. So I think that needs to be encouraged in a much stronger manner. Again, I think we need to utilize our water resource management authority to slow down the pace of this growth so that we can manage it in advance and not try to fix it after the fact. One of the things I asked the city manager when I was first elected, I'd like to see the most recent traffic study we've done for the city. The answer I got was we've never done one. And we still haven't done one, even though we're trying to put together a consultant to work on the North Prescott area plan to include part of that traffic study. And I'm asking that that part of it be pulled out and made available to us now so that we can start dealing with some of the vast growth around the airport. The airport is a great economic driver. I'm a big supporter of the airport, extending the runway so that we can have more consistent air service, protect our firefighting capability is critical, but we also need to protect that encirclement and that encroachment so more residential homes are not impacting the FAA's willingness to fund some of our expansion. The terminal has been great, but now we're dealing with some real poorly planned road access to the terminal that has to be dealt with and not just acquiesce to every demand of the developers out there. So again, I'm a huge supporter of veterans and veteran services. I would do a much better job of supporting our veterans community. Don't forget, hire a vet. And water resource management is just so critically involved in all of the consequences of road management, of development, of residential encroachment to the airport. It's really going to take good planning and good public policy now. Some of the decisions that are being made, we won't be able to unwind that clock. So I ask for your vote, and I hope that you'll visit my website, feelgoodformayor.com. So that's feelgood and the number 4, mayor, and you can look at more of my background, more of my principles, more of my issues and things I'm growing on. So I want to thank you, Tom, Cindy, and Las Fuentes for putting this on. It's a great opportunity to see so many people gathered together. Now we're kind of approaching some sense of normalcy, and it's great to see you all. Thank you for coming.
My campaign slogan is leadership that listens. And I understand that it's important to get public comment, public input in a meeting, but more importantly, my office door is open. This afternoon, I spoke with somebody in Yavapai Hills about a cell tower. And I do this every day, whether they're in my office or I'm on the phone. I am listening to what the public has to say, but I like doing that in a setting where they're comfortable, where it's not in the middle of a public meeting, where we can sit around a table or have a cup of coffee. So I do listen to what our voters have to say. I listen to the public. My values are God, family, country. I value my faith and my family, and I support our country and the Constitution, and I love our freedoms that we have here in Prescott, Arizona, and I will do everything I can to preserve those freedoms, and especially your Second Amendment rights. I think there's a very clear choice here today. You have someone who moved here 6 years ago, who's just came to town, very little involvement in the city, compared to somebody who's been here 26 years, who's run a business, who's jumping into another opportunity to influence the community through a community asset. Somebody who's been involved with the schools, who's raised his family here, who's taught or who's coached Little League and been very involved in local activities. Somebody with an optimistic vision. I love Prescott. I want to make Prescott better, not bigger. I want to see Prescott grow where we continue to work on our quality of life issues to ensure that regardless of what size we are, we will have a quality of life and remain diligent to preserve the best that we have here in Prescott, Arizona. I would just say, in terms of my website, I've mentioned before, please go to votemayor.com. I'd love to have you show up there, and you can see all of my platform there on votemayor.com. I want to thank Tom. I want to thank you all for coming out and really value the fact that you care and you want to hear what's going on in your city. You want to be informed, and I applaud you for being informed. So thank you for coming. I so appreciate your support. My name is Greg Mingarelli. I'm running for mayor, and I would appreciate your vote.
Thank you both, gentlemen. I thought it was quite good, and we didn't get to half of the questions. A lot of them were gotchas. I gave you one gotcha just to clear the air. And thank you, everyone, for attending, both our residents here and all my ex-neighbors. I think they're available for comment or harassment if you'd like to stay and chat with them.
Hey, Greg.
Thank you, Phil.
My question's super easy.
Okay.
When's Splash Mountain? Had a granddaughter.
I think it's in May, for sure by June. Yeah. Yeah, they're doing a lot of work there right now. It'll be a great place to take your granddaughter to go.